Sherri, I want to kind of continue along the lines of the conversation you and Chris were having, and that is like impact on the office. You know, you don't often get a national case that erupts like this and causes such controversy, but it seemed there was some element here that just was the perfect storm to supply some editorial writers, some opinion fashioners, a narrative they could go with where perhaps they saw Kelly Williams-Bolar as a metaphor for something bigger.
Certainly from the very start, they were portraying her as a woman who just wanted to get a better education for her children. I think they were also portraying that the image that she was living in just poverty in a horrible, unsafe area with a horrible school system, and what mother wouldn't want to do this for their children. And the national media jumped all over that. It sounds sad. It sounds unfair to prosecute somebody with a felony, under those circumstances. They certainly portrayed it that way. There were so many facts that were left out, and even with all the efforts we made to educate the national media as to all of the facts with this case, once that got moving in that direction, I personally don't think anybody wanted to hear anything different, because it wouldn't be the same story if you knew exactly what had happened and all the opportunities that had been given to resolve the case. I mean, none of that was addressed. The fact that she herself was saying pretty early on that this wasn't about education, nobody seemed to really care. It just kept escalating. Even to the point where she was saying it's not about this, but again, it didn't feed that editorial narrative. Right. Yeah, I mean, she was saying herself that it wasn't about that. But again, nobody seemed to care, because it was certainly the better story to say it that way. So let me ask a devil's advocate question. Why not be incredibly nasty early on? Because I do think that I do think that obviously the restraint showed in some of the reaction and the statements that your office and you had regarding Kelly Williams-Bolar. In retrospect, why not just come out and blast away right from the start and say, here's all the stuff that this paper didn't report, or this radio station isn't telling you, or this TV station isn't putting online? Why not just come out from the start and say, here's this laundry list of stuff that we're seeing that you aren't seeing, and just go after her tooth and nail? First of all, I'm not sure that would have even helped at that point. We at least tried to post facts and to talk to people. I don't think it serves a prosecutor's office well to come out blasting people. We have a job to do. It's extremely important that we do it fairly, that we act professionally. And although maybe on a personal basis, all of us might personally feel like blasting somebody, I think that it would not be the professional thing to do. So unfortunately, sometimes we have to take our hits. We know we're doing the right thing. We're being ethical. We're being fair. We're doing our job. And unfortunately, sometimes something like this happens. Is it frustrating? Absolutely, it's frustrating. But that's sometimes what happens in our role as prosecutors.
So you do your blasting in the courtroom. We've already established the governor, may or may not follow this recommendation, but don't you think this puts him in kind of an odd situation, since he's the one that pushed for this hearing to take place when it did?
Well, certainly I think it's going to be interesting to see what the governor does with this. He has a lot of facts before him now. The parole board decision is long. It's thorough. It's well written. It lays out all of the issues very clearly. But, like I said, the governor doesn't have to follow that. But, our personal opinion is he should, because I think it's very well done. But it's up to the governor. It seems like a lot of these things move on at a speed on their own, that they have kind of their own shelf life. But looking back, the governor made his pronouncements when he was just basing his opinion over, quite frankly, something his wife called his attention to, based on editorials and stuff that she would see. And that was an incomplete story. I mean, it's just, you're also a politician. You run for office. Politically, do you come out and say, man, there's stuff here I had no idea was in here? If I, making a decision now based on what I know versus what I knew then, the situation has changed. What kind of strength does that take? Well, the situation certainly has changed. And when the governor had made some of the statements he made, there were a lot of facts he was not aware of. And yes, he, just like so many other people, were relying heavily on what the media, particularly the national media, was saying. I think knowing what he knows now after reading the parole board's decision, should not have a hard time saying, hey, now that I've seen all of this, my opinion is different. That's what we're hopeful for.
Legally, he doesn't have any deadline. He doesn't have a timeline. There is no article. There is no execution date that something has to be delivered. There's no warrant to be carried out here. I mean, he could take a good long time to really sleep on this.
Yes, as far as I know, he could take as long as he wants on this. So we have no idea whether something will come out this week or next month or the month after that.